He's got his green on. It's Thursday and the Masters. He's ready to go, man. You got any bourbon?
It's Christmas, baby. It's Christmas.
Over there.
What?
You got any bourbon? I know you've got some right over there.
Oh, yeah, it's in there.
Nice. Let's give everybody a second to get started.
Janine, when are you coming to Charlotte again? She can't even hear me anyway. What's up, Nate?
What's happening?
Masters Thursday. That's what's happening.
All right, let's give everybody another minute to see who else is jumping on this morning. Felicia, you win spot of the day, it looks like. You're at a nice place. Andy, what's going on in Charlotte? How are things?
Good. A little bit on the warm side, which is, I'll take it all day long.
Absolutely. You going to be able to break away today and watch a little bit?
Yeah, I'll probably try to break out here around 3. I think that's when it starts airing anyway.
I saw Jack tee off this morning. I'm sorry.
No, it was Jack and Black Knight. What's his name? Gary Player.
That's right. I didn't see Gary, but I did see Jack. Yeah, it looks gorgeous down there.
Oh my God. I was supposed to have gone last year. Julie got tickets for us for my 40th. And then they moved it obviously to November. And then they moved it to this April as far as the tickets get a part of that lottery. So maybe next year we'll get to go.
There you go. All right. We've still got folks trickling in, but Brandon made it, and he's the most important of all the people that are going to be on the call, so we can get started now. No offense, Nate. Sorry. Andy, the floor is yours, brother. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Well, happy Thursday, everybody. I had reached out to Doug just recently just to kind of do a little face-to-face and also bring something into play that might help you guys. Not that you have to do a show of hands, but obviously it's war out there. And I would imagine that everybody's experienced getting their teeth kicked in quite a bit lately. And I heard an interesting stat the other day where there is currently more real estate agents in the U.S. than there are homes available for sale. And I thought that was just absolutely crazy. But it basically is a testament to what we're enduring and what we're experiencing. And ultimately, I don't know about you guys, but it's on our end, it's a constant evolution of trying to figure out how can we differentiate ourselves every day when it's our turn to make an offer and there's 10 other families up against that. And strategies that have been put in place have been anywhere from a simple reaching out to the listing agent to kind of be an additional cheerleader for you and the buyer. But just trying to figure out outside of the box situations, because, you know, whether it be the listing agent or the seller themselves, their interpretations of 10 pre-approvals that, sometimes could probably be overwhelming for any given seller is an imperfect understanding of what that pre-approval really entails. And had an interesting situation down in Florida where I am licensed as well, but I had an old school realtor who called me and says, "Hey, Andy, I have this pre-approval." And I said, "Okay." She goes, "It's for 95% financing." I said, "What's your question?" She goes, "Well, I haven't seen that in years." And I just said, "Well, you're probably making a judgment call because you're looking at other offers that maybe have a cash offer, we know the cash offer spiel, or 20% down," and kind of just had to walk her through and almost sell her on why this particular buyer was the best offer. Forget price, forget concessions, forget X, Y, Z, and kind of just walk her through that. He's a financial advisor, and if there's ever time to leverage, it'd be right now. And you might be interpreting that they're only good for 5% down, when in fact he's good for 50% down. He's just going to elect and opt to finance as much as possible, if you will. And you may have already incorporated some of these strategies, whether it be with me or other preferred lending partners. But one of the things that NFM and our company or our office has begun to re-implement now that interest rates are normalizing, which is really just fancy talk for they're on the rise, is a program called Lock and Shop. And how this basically works is, a few minutes ago, I was talking about how do we differentiate ourselves? How do we win the deal? And the Lock and Shop is a program where most lenders, and I want to say 99% of them, won't allow a consumer to lock an interest rate until they're actually under contract for a home that has a defined purchase price, a defined, a defined address and a defined line in the sand. And it might be a little hard to see there, and Doug, remember that's proprietary. But nevertheless, what this does is if the client opts to be engaged and goes ahead and sends in their income and asset documentations, and we get what we call a TBD pre-approval, which means we've vetted them as the individual, then all that's left is the collateral aspect of things. And the Lock and Shop, the concept behind it is in a rising rate environment. If you give a pre-approval to somebody at today's interest rate, but they don't find a home for 30, 45, 60 days or whatnot, that impact to the interest rate and subsequently their monthly payment could either be a deterrent or an impediment to their final approval, if you will. So this is a unique opportunity where it gets the client engaged, and we go ahead and get a lot of that underwriting out of the way, and we provide the benefit to you and your customer by having an opportunity to lock at that day's interest rates. And you can either do a 60 or a 90-day lock, and we can get granular in due time, but it goes ahead and gives the consumer a sense of security. B, it gives them a sense of urgency because it is now a 60 or 90-day time frame. So if you've got those clients that are on the fence or not as responsive, Doug will throw out Billy, just for example, it creates that sense of urgency to, all right, now I'm good to go. I've got that comfort. And more importantly, how we can differentiate ourselves when it comes to making that offer is that call to the listing agent for me says, not only are they good because of X, Y, Z, but we can do this in 15 days because the only thing left is an appraisal, title work, and homeowner's insurance. And from a consumer's perspective, it's a no downside in that if interest rates do rise, well, then they're protected. But if they're under contract and they're closing within 30 days, during that last 30-day period, if interest rates have fallen, and we'll say for all intents and purposes fallen by 0.25% or more, the consumer has an opportunity to execute what you've probably heard the term before of a float down. So in short, it's another differentiator where sometimes time is money as well. And if you can express, hey, I got the same offer, the same terms, but I can knock this out in 2 weeks and your client won't have to make another mortgage payment, or they just hear 15 days is, just as good as what a cash offer usually entails. It's just a really, unique and neat new program that, for lack of a better term, will be another differentiating or separator, if you will.
Let me ask you this, Andy.
You just want to like prompt kind of a little Q&A or whatnot as far as the characteristics of it. But did I kind of get over what I was talking to you about from before?
So would that work with, you know how people that are in new construction and let's say ground up takes like, I don't know, 8 months, but they don't lock their rate until 6 days out from completion. Well, if 6 months later, that rate could be a whole, point higher. Does this work for them? Can they lock the rate that far out in new construction?
I mean, good question. Yes, but it's going to be on a different platform. For new construction, Janine, there's extended lock policies that can go, 4 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, et cetera. And that insurance policy or that extended rate lock policy is applicable or only applicable to new construction to offset those risks that you're just identifying. When those new construction opportunities arise, we basically have a conversation of quantifying the cost of that extended lock policy, which is kind of like an insurance policy. But unlike new construction, for this program, it's generally geared at resales or new homes that maybe are already built or ready to be completed in 90 days, maybe like spec homes or something like that. But whereas the extended rate lock on new construction comes at a premium for that insurance policy, this is no cost at all, if that makes sense in the way I answered that. Did that help you out on what you're looking for?
Andy, when you say no cost, are you saying that there's no like shell game? Like, okay, it's no cost, but the rate, or I don't know, is there some kind of hidden thing?
Yeah, good question. I guess shell game, I would probably have you elaborate on, but if you look at the first option, what it basically is priced out at, Nate, is it goes to today's current 60-day lock, and you lock at that price. And what I mean by price is that there are 15-day locks, 30-day locks, 45-day locks, 60-day locks, and even 75-day locks. The longer that you have to lock a rate for to either meet a closing date that has been defined by all parties, or maybe a desired amount, if you will, the longer that you have to lock the rate for, the more expensive the money is, if you will. So there's no really shell game, but it's kind of like you got to take the insurance policy for what it is, and the cost of the insurance policy is you're going to have to accept the fact that it's a 60-day price versus if you came to me with someone under contract and you said, let's close this in 21 days, I wouldn't need a 60-day lock. I could lock it at a 30-day, and the consumer might benefit from that small or marginal difference, whether it be in an 1/8% rate or a couple $100 in closing cost, if you will. Option two, basically the consumer says, hey, Andy, 60 days is a little tight of a window because I got to A, find a house, and B, be able to win the deal, and maybe they're a little bit far out on their lease or they're selling their home as well. They can accept a 60-day lock plus an 1/8% to that interest rate to give them an additional 30 days or a total of 90, and gives yourself a little bit of wiggle room. But all the meanwhile, you still have that fail safe of once you're under contract and within 30 days, if rates have in fact fallen or pricing has improved, there's that ability to float down. So it's not like where you have a sister financing company from a builder where the shell game is we'll give you $5,000 in closing costs, but we're really building it into the interest rate. This is none of that minutia. This just simply has to be with, creating a time window where you can go ahead and say, I know that my worst case scenario is going to be this particular interest rate, and it's predictable, and I know what that quantifies to, if you will.
Did that help?
Yep.
And what I sent to you, Doug, when it comes down to the float down and pricing and all that stuff, that's going to be more Japanese or a foreign language to a real estate professional than it would be for myself or whatnot. But the highlight's really there at the top, and then hopefully I'm languaging them the benefits from the consumer's perspective, from your perspective, from our perspective. I think another thing that really is unspoken in this program is that it almost forces / requires the engagement of the buyer. And sometimes that's one of the larger struggles is engagement or involvement. And this is kind of like, look, this stuff is inevitable. Do you want to go ahead and get yourself out of the way of, like, for instance, Christopher and Ben, do you want to have that peace of mind knowing that you're good to go on the individual side of things? And really, it's at that point truly happy with a capital H house hunting, if we can include some happiness these days versus frustration and anger, but really happy house hunting, and we'll be able to knock this out in 15 days. And so when I say that 15 days, sometimes that perks people's ears up. Sometimes that prompts a subsequent question like, you can really knock this out in 15 days? Well, theoretically, yes. But, you know, depending upon appraiser's availability and, you know, our natural default of the plus 14 that we have in the contract, we can present team buyer as a 15-day close as well, and really have 29. Not that we want to take every 29 days or whatnot, but that is built in there, if that makes sense.
So a lot of the benefits of what we're looking at here is it gives the buyer more flexibility in protecting the rate, and gives them it's really a win-win for any buyer to use this program because they're protected in the short and the long term. Also, going through the full process on the front end, especially in a market like this, not only gives them the option to know that, hey, I'm not risking $5,000 in due diligence plus, and I'm worried about my loan not happening because I've only submitted, you know, 25% of the paperwork just to get an approval letter because I fell in love with the house and wanted to make an offer. I'm knowing that I'm secure on that end. If there's any issue, it's going to be about the house, not the loan product. Also, it can make your offer stronger in two ways. One, you can close faster, which is a huge benefit and one that you should definitely take advantage of. Second is you've got Andy who can reach out and help you convince the seller and the listing agent why this is a strong offer, and make sure that they're not misreading, to his example when we first started. I mean, what a great example that was. On paper, they're putting 5% down. Okay, these people aren't cash heavy, right? They're not very liquid. So maybe there's some risk there. Anybody else only seeing that on paper versus somebody with, you know, 80% loan to value, you're like, immediately, all things given being the same, well, you know, this is a better deal, right? But maybe what you don't know is, well, the people putting 20% down, that's all they've got, 20% down. The reason the guy's only putting 5% down is because he's making his money work for him elsewhere. And honestly, he could put half down if he wanted to.
Yeah, and your words actually prompt a few extra thoughts. One, on when you make that offer. I mean, shoot me a text that says we're gonna be making an offer in like an hour. Like on an hour and 5 minutes, I'll call that listing agent on the receipt, maybe before they even get that offer, if you will. But instead of a pre-approval letter that comes along with every offer, that's absolutely a requirement these days. When you go through this lock and shop, the pre-approval is going to be an even fancier level of approval and assurance, in that instead of a pre-approval, it's going to actually have a credit approval. And the format of that letter that looks different than the ones that you get, you know, when we just kick off an application online to begin with, is that it will have that it's been through underwriting. It will list all the conditions that are left, so that it's further proof that it's really just about appraisal, title work, and insurance. And I can provide that letter that has those. Now, in certain cases, we take out certain financial, you know, privacy aspects of it, but it looks even glossier than a pre-approval. And we all know sometimes a pre-approval is just about as good as the paper it's worth on if the information is not accurate, hasn't been vetted. This has been vetted. It is ready to go. Just say yes to us and we'll make it happen.
In a market like this, you want to use every resource possible to strengthen your offer, right? Why not copy Andy when you send the offer over with the approval letter, right? And then not only are you going to obviously let Andy know on the side, hey, we're working on this. Hey, I'm getting ready to send this. Hey, I'm going to copy you on it. Then he sees it and can immediately reply all, just to fill in the blanks or make sure that he's telling those extra details that he knows about it, to make the listing agent say, you know what, maybe what I'm seeing isn't necessarily that, or to even reinforce that what you're seeing is badass. You want to make sure that, you know, this is the truth, and it is.
The other thought that I had was of that example I gave earlier about the 95%. If you've got buyers that are going FHA, VA, or down payment assistance through North Carolina Housing, that could be one of those things that by just natural tendencies, if you've got 10 or 15 offers, one might, meaning listing agent and or seller, might be looking at those and going, well, we can go ahead and scratch the VA, we'll scratch the FHA, we'll scratch the down payment assistance one, if you will. Having a conversation, or me having a conversation to explain why they're going FHA, and it's not bad. I had one last fall, a friend of mine who had been divorced and had a short sale in New York with his ex-wife, and because of waiting periods, he was great in every other aspect except that he didn't meet the conventional. He had to go FHA, and the seller, who's actually an agent here in town, said, whoa, you've changed up the game on me. Now they're going FHA. This is bad. And I said, what's bad about it? And they go, well, I heard it can take forever, much longer. I was like, and I heard the appraisal is much more scrutinized. And I'm like, same method to the madness. The only thing is do you have any, paint that's scratched laying on the ground, or do you have a water or a well or a septic? And I knew it did one because it was in town. And I said, and appraiser is going to take the exact amount of time. Long story short, guys, we closed it in like 20 days, and I got to the closing and I said, Steve, do you have a better understanding or a better non-imperfect understanding of why FHA doesn't mean it's got a black cloud or you've got some crap buyer or shitty situation, pardon my French? People just have an imperfect understanding of the different programs. And, if you're already up against so many people just with the best of terms, cash, you still can cheerlead and you still can win. And, just another arrow in your quiver, if you will.
Absolutely. And just
out there,
make sure you're having the conversations with Andy to say, hey, what does our time frame look like given where you are in their approval process? I mean, because if you think 30 is the most you can do, and it's not, well, then you're missing an opportunity to give your buyer a leg up, right? So make sure that you're having those conversations and you understand.
And the last thing that I'll say, and I'll let you guys get to your meeting, is, when it comes to making an offer above and beyond the sales price, which just seems to be everyone, 10 above, 5 above, 20 above, 30 above, $10,000 earnest money. Doug, I think we've talked about it, but having you guys have that buyer consultation, which is really setting the level of expectations when it comes to, if you're in a certain price point, you got to be guns a-blazing, if you will. Sometimes when a consumer either doesn't hear the message in the way that you deliver it, and I know that because sometimes you got to say the same exact thing but 5 different ways, or hear it from a different person in the same exact way. It's just how one interprets it, if you will. But having a consultation of be prepared to pay 5 over appraisal if that's part of the terms that we need to deal. And when a consumer hears, I'm going to overpay $5,000, I can jump in there and help dilute the dizziness of how that really means that on a 5% down, that's $250 more out of pocket, and I can still do kind of the same exact loan, if you will. You're not coming out of pocket. So, and just again, be able to strategize and prepare them that if you're in this price point, or any price point for that matter, good Lord, it doesn't matter. Up to $1 million, it's competitive as hell. That you're just armed, and 2 heads are better than 1. So the more that we can get them informed, the more we can get them engaged, the more we can get them ready. I don't know what else to kind of help differentiate other than, hiring a mariachi band and coming along with the offer or the email.
Singing telegram to deliver the offer.
Exactly. Any questions on any of this? I mean, feel free to reach out on an individual basis just to kind of get some more granular details on that. But I've got 3 lock and shops. We just started this like a couple of weeks ago because last year it didn't make sense because rates were declining. But fast forward, and then also fast forward on the market frenzy. more agents than houses. This is back in action, and I implore you to find another lender that will allow someone to lock an interest rate without having a property under contract. So
it's a pretty cool, awesome product, and it's unique. I really haven't seen anything like it. So thanks for taking the time to not only share it with us, but sit us down and walk us through it. Anybody have any other questions? All right, Andy, thank you, sir. I hope
you got it. Have a good one, guys.
Bye.